the owner of this car has got a charger, so he's able to charge his battery in around about 2 hours. If you were charging on a 3-pin, which many of us won't have chargers yet installed on our houses, then you're looking from a 3-pin perspective at about 7 hours. But I was quite impressed that he is achieving low 30s in the summer months, high 20s on EV in the winter months. What does that mean? When people talk about miles per gallon on plug-in hybrids, it is very, very dependent on, well, largely two things. One is how you use the car. If you do lots and lots of short journeys, then those short journeys the majority of your driving will therefore be on E-mode, and therefore MPG becomes almost infinite, because you're on battery all the time. If you do lots of miles every day, then the amount of, or the percentage of time on battery is far smaller, and therefore it becomes more dependent upon the fuel consumption of the actual 4-cylinder petrol engine. The owner of this car specifically, he's done about 17,000 miles in the car, of which just slightly over half has been on EV. He was talking about he's got a journey about 60 miles each way, and it's just about doable, that sort of just on EV. If you're doing that and you're able to recharge it between uses, then clearly you're going to get a far better overall MPG. And I think the second consideration is with any EV as well, is about where you live. Specifically here, it's actually quite flat, benign territory. Where I live is very hilly, and hills, EVs generally don't like hills, because you'll use far more power getting up a hill than you will regen coming down. And like all PHEVs, this will regenerate through braking. Although, just in the first few miles here, once I've lifted off the accelerator, there doesn't appear to be much regeneration. Quite often on a PHEV, when you lift off the accelerator, it will feel like you're lightly braking. Doesn't feel like that at the moment. So I think certainly under EV mode, even at relatively modest speeds of sort of 30-40 miles an hour, it's actually really refined. It's quiet. I think the ride is on the firmer side. I think for a large luxury executive car, you probably may expect something a little bit more refined, a little bit more softer. It's definitely on the sporty side. Probably not helped with the 20-inch alloys. Probably not helped because they have to probably have beefed up the springs and dampers and the suspension for the additional 200 or 300 kilos of battery weight in there as well. So staying in EV mode here, we're just coming out of this 30, just going to take it up to about 40, 45. Apparently at that sort of speed it's fine. In fact, I read somewhere that you can take it up to over 80 on EV mode. So we're at 40 now, just feathering the accelerator, 45 miles an hour, and it's just coasting along. Yeah, tyre noise is definitely the one that surprises me. So I'm just going to go down now. There's various modes you can use. 4 modes in total, actually. So you can have it in EV mode. You're forcing the batteries to work. You can then have it into hybrid. So I've switched it into hybrid. So, and this is where the petrol engine and the battery pack will work together. There is then battery hold, which is basically just the engine. And it's just saving the battery for later in the journey. And then there's now a 4th mode as well, which is battery charge, where you're forcing the engine to not only drive the vehicle but actually charge the battery as well. reason for that, I suppose, would be if you're going into a sort of a battery only zone around emissions, you're going into a city, and you haven't had time to charge, you could do that. So let me just switch this now into hybrid. So I'm in hybrid, and we're just going to go onto a slightly faster road where I should be able to just accelerate and get that engine kicked in and see what the transition's like between battery and engine. So as I come out of this junction here, accelerate hard at 15 miles an hour, and we are at 60 there. Not very long. That tends to back up the fact that this is a 5.5 second car to 60. That's really defying some of its 2.2, 2.3 ton of weight here. And I suppose that's my real thing that really grates me, is why we've just got cars have got bigger and they've got heavy, and all we do seems to be stick more power in them. And I mean, 300 brake horsepower, but it does defy. It feels a bit heavy on some of the. Once you start to lean on the car, you can just feel some of the weight. The suspension doing an adequate job, but that's all. The transition from engine to battery and battery to engine is very, very good. In fact, it's such a level that you at times are unsure that whether the engine is running or not, and that, I suppose, is in a PHEV is a really, really good thing. There's very little jerkiness between both modes. Whether you want to hear something or not is from a sporty nature, you probably do, but being an everyday type of car, it's probably a trade-off that you're willing to make. And the engine, when the engine's running, you just really can't hear that it's running. Very quiet. The only real noise you've got is that tyre noise. The dash, the instruments here, not particularly intuitive. You're just having to, you press some of these buttons, and unless your fingers bang on it, it doesn't necessarily always. Again, I prefer some buttons, and this screen it's okay. But again, there's so many settings on here. If you go into navigation, I think one of the clever bits of tech on this car is if it is in hybrid. So you're leaving the car to work out whether to use the engine or the battery. If you put a sat-nav destination in the inbuilt sat-nav, it can't use Apple CarPlay. But if you put it into the inbuilt sat-nav, then the car will work out the optimum use of engine and battery on the route, so you shall get to your destination on the last bits of battery. It's also got the active accelerator that will just tap your foot just to say just lift off your closing speed on the car in front, and it's just done that there, and it tends to for you to remove your foot from the accelerator, and that's all about efficiency. Even though I'm actually in dynamic setting, the driver modes between efficiency, comfort and dynamic, in today's drive, me having to be relatively cautious, I'm struggling. I've not noticed much difference in the steering feel, throttle sensitivity. Don't believe they come with adaptive dampers, and so I'm not even sure what they are. The seats look okay. Not a great lover of the grey, because I'm just not sure it particularly goes particularly well. where the Alcantara or the suede moves, it just looks like at times it's been marked. But the seats, they look okay, nothing special, and they're definitely built for luxury and comfort rather than any sort of sporting credentials. If you do start leaning into a few corners, you feel like you're holding onto them with a steering wheel rather than the seats providing any form of lateral support. But it's probably, again, it's probably what you'd expect from this class of car. Just flowing down this road now, little sort of twisty B road this, and the car feels certainly able, but steering feel is really devoid of any type of steering feedback at all. A trait of modern steering, really, I suppose. Say it's only on when you start really pushing on do you start noticing the bulk and the weight of the car. The big surprise is on the regen. It feels very little regen through any type of braking. You sort of lift off and you wouldn't really know. But again, put your foot down. Even now, I've just switched it into efficiency, and it certainly still picks up really, really well. But I just don't feel connected at all. Is it bringing a smile to my face? Not particularly. Is it efficient at what it's doing? Yes, it is. The inside, the way it's finished, it all feels typical Audi quality. There's not a creak, rattle or anything in the car. It feels premium and it feels like it's been built to last, and it is a lovely place to be. Got to talk values. When this car came out in early 21, it was sort of early to mid 50s. This specific car now in 2023 prices was retailing, according to Pete, because it was the S line, because it was the black edition, retailing it between £67,000 and £68,000. That's a lot of money, serious money. But again, it's been done through company car scheme, and because the benefit in kind has been pretty low, the impact has made it affordable. But what it does mean is, for any private buyers out there, these cars do tend to lose a lot of money, and sort of a 2-year-old one now, they can be down in the 30s. So just be aware of steep depreciation, but that could mean the opportunity to bag yourself a bargain, sort of 2, 3, 4-year-old one, if that's what you fancy. So how do I summarise my time today with the A6? It does some things really, really well. I think it's a great looking car, both outside and inside. I think the cabin, it feels plush, it feels premium, it feels well built, and if you want to spend some time in here, it's a nice place to spend time for sure. The performance is, in everyday driving, the 300 brake horsepower and that performance figure of about 5.5 seconds to 60 is absolutely more than enough for everyday driving. And and as a PHEV, a plug-in hybrid, it does fit in the mould that if you do a lot of short journeys of under 30 miles in real world range, you're going to be able to run this car on battery mode a lot. And because it's only a PHEV with a relatively small battery, you'll be able to charge it using a 3-pin plug overnight to get another 30 miles of range the following day. So you haven't got the investment of a battery charger at home either, and it gives you the assurance though that should you need that longer journey, you've got the internal combustion engine, the 2-litre petrol engine there to back it up for the longer journeys, so it doesn't give you the range anxiety. And all that makes a really, really compelling case. But there's a few negatives, I think, for me with the car. The price it is of this, in this spec in particular, it's a very, very expensive car, £68,000, and they do suffer quite a lot of depreciation in the early years. In truth, like most large exec cars do, there is a pro to that, because it could make a good 2, 3, 4-year-old second-hand purchase if you're happy to take the risk associated with battery degradation over the years and overuse, which again is subject to a discussion. But ultimately, from a sporty nature, yes, it's got 300 brake horsepower delivered through that Quattro system, but it doesn't really offer any type of dynamic sportiness, really. But as an everyday large family car that's quick, it's refined, the transition from engine to battery and back again is seamless. You can't hear the engine. Don't expect when the engine kicks in to hear some nice turbo petrol charge noise at all. It's very quiet, it's very refined, to the point that you don't actually know whether it's the battery or the engine that's driving the car. There you go. Modern day car. Might have not delivered all the fast and fun of the channel that we sometimes get, but I think it's really important that we reach in and look and review these type of cars, because this is the trickle down technology that's coming. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, thumbs up, subscribe, stay tuned. Another video next week. Thanks for watching.